What up, nerds? My name is Leslie Smith. Welcome back to The Nerdy Narrative, a little channel I created in order to have a place to share about all of the things that I read. I am so sorry. I totally shafted you guys a weekly reading wrap-up last week. I really wanted to try to film last week, but I lost my voice. I was doing more squeaking when I was trying to talk than anything else, so I decided, you know what? I'm just gonna move some stuff around and put off filming until this week. And so here we are. So let's talk about what all I read since I checked in with you last. Spoiler alert, not much. My sinuses were so packed in my head that I had a headache and I couldn't really concentrate. And then on top of that, I was taking Dayquil or NyQuil, depending on what time of day it was. And that made me really loopy and sleepy, and just all I did was sit in my chair and watch TV. More specifically, I think I watched every documentary there was on Netflix about serial killers. And I was so annoyed because I was about 100 pages from finishing Lesser Evil, which is the third book in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy. For any of you who know anything about Thrawn from the Star Wars universe, he is very smart. He is very unique in how he learns and strategizes. And I didn't want to read the last 100 pages where the culmination of the trilogy was and not be able to concentrate on what was happening or even remember it. I did try and I couldn't retain anything. So I finally finished it this morning. So I guess we'll start with that one. And it was a good book. The first book in the series, Chaos Rising, was the best book. It was wonderful. It was just very good. It was very interesting. It had a lot of action in it. The second book, worthless, so boring. There was nothing in that book that made it necessary. Not one thing at all. I feel this should have been a duology. If some of you have not read this trilogy and you want to, I would say read Chaos Rising and then Lesser Evil. But this one was good. It still wasn't as good as the first one. We did have a lot more of Thrawn involved, along with some other key characters we've been reading about in this trilogy. I did like the ending. It wrapped up well and it tied in with what we already knew about Thrawn. And the bottom line is it did its job. This trilogy was all about Thrawn, how he got his start and what led to his exile from the Chiss. And we got that. I'm just a little disappointed because Timothy Zahn started the trilogy off so good and it did not carry that same energy throughout the rest of the trilogy. This week's Stephen King short story was The Mangler. That is out of the Night Shift collection. I loved it. Absolutely loved it. There's an element in the story that I will not tell you about because you don't know until you're almost at the end of the story what that element is. But that is one of the most interesting, I don't know whether to call it a myth or a legend or what, but there's something in this story that I absolutely love to read about. If you have read Middle Game by Shauna McGuire, then you have encountered this element. Shauna McGuire did a much better job explaining that element, just what it was, what it could do. Stephen King didn't. He just alluded to it being extremely evil, dark, and powerful, but I knew what it was and I knew just how dark and powerful and evil that it was. So I absolutely enjoyed The Mangler very, very much. It is probably my second favorite in the collection so far. And then the only other book that I finished since I talked to you guys last was A Little Hatred by J. Abercrombie. This is the first book in the Age of Madness trilogy. I really, really, really enjoyed it. I loved some of the new characters that got introduced. I love their relation to some of my favorite characters from the first trilogy. But what really shone for me in this one was Abercrombie's descriptions and depiction of how progress and industry changed the lives of everybody. Not just the lower class, but also what it meant for the nobles. But of course, the lower class, middle class suffered greatly. It took away many, many jobs. A lot of land was stolen from farmers to build these factories on. Their livelihoods were just completely stripped away. Some of these farmers were men who served in the army. They had been fighting all of the years before we got to this book through the First Law World. And I just felt that so strongly as a parallel as to when our troops go off to war and they come back to nothing. Their families are gone, have moved on. The nation has forgotten about them. They end up being homeless, committing suicide. Like, he just really illustrated that so well in this book, in my opinion. I just absolutely loved it. Can't wait to see what's going to happen in the next one, which I believe is called The Trouble with Peace. That is all that I've finished since the last time I checked in with you guys. As far as what I'm still reading, currently, nothing. Like I mentioned earlier, I finished Lesser Evil this morning. That is the first time I've read anything in 6 days. So as a result, my November TBR is not going to get finished, and a lot of those books are going to have to get pushed into December. So that brings us to, what am I reading next? So for those of you that have seen the announcement over on the Codex Cantina, I will be getting started on A Very German Christmas. A tradition that the Codex Cantina started last year was to take a different country each year, just kind of look into their celebration of the Christmas season. Do they celebrate? How they celebrate? Some of their fun holiday traditions and customs they may have. And then of course we like to read some of the holiday stories from that time frame. So this is the collection that I will be working on this week. Expect to see more about this in the coming month of December. The next book that I'm going to get started on is Mike Shell's Sin Eater. This is a read-along that I'm co-hosting with Andrew's Wizardly Reads. The Discord channel, if you want to join, is over on the Wizardly Duo Discord, which I will have linked in the description box down below. This was supposed to have been read in November. Due to me being sick and not reading, I am way behind, but I'm going to get started on this one. The first book in the series, Aching God, I read very quickly. I expect to blaze through this one, so I hope to get caught up on this one very soon. And that brings us to the end of an extremely short weekly reading wrap-up. I am definitely feeling much better. I just still have some congestion and sniffles going on. Hopefully that will just finish drying on up over the next couple of days, but the important thing is I am back to being able to read, which makes me a very happy camper. Guys, thank you so much for watching today. I appreciate you being here. Have a fantastic rest of your Friday, a wonderful weekend, and I will see you in the next one.